What's good, y'all, and welcome to another Should You Summon. This week's Should You Summon is a triple threat, triple S banner, as in summon, skip, save. So it is, I think, the very first weekend where it's like such a split, and I'll go over the naming sense in a bit. So super short, this banner is a skip, this banner is a summon, and for the future, you better save. We'll go through all the banners, I'll explain the reasons why, and as usual, we've been already hard at work, in-depth testing the newest legendary hero, so I can give you the very best insights on if he's worth for your account for every single game mode. If you're interested in that very deep look, it's already up on my channel, I think since yesterday, maybe 2 days ago. And yeah, let's not really waste anybody's time and start off with the simplest banner, and that is the crazy divine summoning 2x. If you have divines, if you got that trigger finger, if you can't wait, then summon. By all means summon. That's rule number one. You do not summon as okay, there's technically 3 rules to divine summoning, alright? Number one, you do not waste your divine pity. The closer you go to divine pity, the more careful you should be with it, and then use it smartly on, for example, good banners. Number two, in general, you never want to use those divines on a banner that isn't 2x, because the drop rate of divines is still only 6%, and you really don't want to go to the full 20 for the pity, which is why you either pull on 2x's or 2x by 15s, with the little exception that if it's an incredible good 15x banner. And then rule number 3, obviously, use your divines however you want, because I mean, it's your currency, right? But yeah, that's kind of the 2 most important ones I go by. This banner is fine, you can summon here, but keep in mind the best banner is always a 2x 15x when it comes to divines. So now we have this special invocation, Magda. Magda is incredibly amazing. You can see her in GVG, which was something that did surprise me a bit, but overall what you're looking at is a AoE fighter with magic damage, knockback, and team support. Team support as in she can give up to 20% damage increase and up to a 15% penetration increase to allies in range. The cool part here is these allies in range has nothing to do with her ult range or anything. It's just like the adjacent tiles, so it's pretty much the 9. It's like the same way that a Laurel passive works. So it's the 8 tiles around her, the 3 on the top, 2 to the sides, 3 below her. All of those units are able to gain that penetration increase and the damage increase. So funnily enough, for most parts, Magda is just there to make other heroes stronger and then be there to do some cleanup. Outside of that, she has incredibly high multipliers, she attacks quite a lot, and she's the only hero, at least at the moment I think, that is able to completely by herself solo damage deal with 121. You can just put her in, give her inspiration, give her rage regen, and she's gonna be able to kill everybody, no anti-heal needed. Unfortunately, pushback doesn't really work in Gear Dungeon 1. So that's why she's not that popular there, and sadly magic damage isn't all that great for dealing with the units in the bottom lane for Gear Dungeon 2. But outside of that, whenever it comes to like AoE capabilities, and as long as these units are vulnerable to magic damage, she is really crushing it. You can see it specifically in AMR, where she can also almost solo the higher 20s of stages. So that's Magda for you. She's a very nice unit, but then again, it's a 15x banner, so chances are you're either not gonna pull a legendary, or for example, it couldn't be Magda. Oleg, we don't need to talk about Oleg. Oleg, still best epic tank in the entire game, but you get him from Void Rift anyway. Gluttony is amazing for arena. Yes, he can eat up some people, but I think every one of you should already have a copy, and even if you don't, he is not that essential. And then you have Selkath, who's just trash, alright? So, Marksman Fenris, the one you're all caring about, what can he do? Where is he going to shine? So, let's define average. I would rate average on, for example, like a tier list, maybe like a B, low B, mid B. That's kind of like the rating I would give him. So he's average in gear rate 1, gear rate 2, and gear rate 3 for certain reasons. Like for example, physical damage is not that effective gear rate 1. His AoE damage feels worse than what a Maul can bring for gear rate 2. And his AoE damage isn't really keeping up with everything on the right side unless you're going with ridiculous gear on gear rate 3, but he can at least deal with the left side. So he's average for gear rates. If you're looking for someone to progress your gear rates, he's not the man. After the gear rates, you have the gear dungeons. He's basically useless there as far as I can tell. He can, obviously because of his damage type, not deal with any gear dungeon 1 stuff. And also because of his pushback. His pushback is either bugged or, to be fair, what he does is he pushes back the minion in the bottom lane of gear dungeon 2, but he pushes them upwards or downwards. He doesn't push them sideways. No idea why. But even then, a single knockback with 2 times strength is, as far as I can tell, not enough to push him far away anyway. That's the reason why Edda's pushback is so crucial, because she pushes back once and then she pushes back twice. So even then, yeah, bottom lane not really happening. And then for the top lane, he just doesn't have enough damage. So all of these don't really work. Yes, he can work to some extent in AMR, especially the one stages where you have like all those platform units. But then again, someone like a Greed is just more effective at doing what Fenris wants to do because he has the higher slows. Fenris does slow at 50% with basic and with passive, with this one right here, but 50% is not 75%. And this knockback as well as the stun is nice, but it isn't nearly as crucial. So the 2 areas where he's really going to at least have a fighting chance, a chance to shine, is going to be, or will have to be, Arena. If you just use him to ensure that nobody gets past you in anti-air, and then you have like your other 4 units pretty much carrying the fight. And outside of that, GVG. So it is a possibility for him to be solid in GVG, but from our testing, it's more of a, he's in the same category as other units that do the same thing. So pretty much just crowd control / damage dealer hybrids, like for example Greed or Theowin. And even then, once again, he might be able to throw off some timings with the pushback, with the stun, but it's nothing that's like game breaking. His damage is decent enough, but I don't really see him dominating specifically in GVG. He can be useful there. And then obviously the last point that could be a very big plus in his direction is a potential Northern faction trials, because he would be able to give all these Northerners rage regen. He would also have obviously nice damage, nice knockback slows. But then again, if they do make the Northern faction trial to the point that you can only clear it if you have a Fenris, then Moonton just basically played themselves, and we shouldn't expect them to be that lost, right? You cannot make a faction trial where a specific legendary is required. Yeah, this is pretty much his selling point. If you're looking for a more like unique unit that has like a little bit of something that nobody else has, and that is his synergy with shields. As long as a unit is shielded, it doesn't matter if it's a Northerner or if it's an other unit, they gain a 1% rage per second after being fully upgraded. So the same amount of rage regen as a Elowin would give you. I don't really have a piece of content in mind where that could really matter. Because if you bring in a healer, then you might as well bring Elowin, and then he's kind of like, doesn't really make too much of a difference. If you're bringing no healers and you want him to use in something like the Pelagius Codex, where do you get the shields from, right? The shields are then only going to be pretty much on himself, or maybe on the A1 with everyone in his range, but this range is also kind of awkward to use for this fight. So it's going to be like mostly just rage regen for himself, and then his damage potential really doesn't make too much of an impact for the Codex. So it's more of a, I don't know. So final rating for Fenris. He is a great off-banner pull. Skip this banner, summon on whenever we get a really good banner, And then if this banner ends up giving you a Fenris instead of the on banner units, you're gonna be happy, because Fenris, he's at least nice to have. He has unique selling points, he has a cool design, and it's at least better than pulling something like a Krag or Shamir. So yeah, that's pretty much Fenris for you. Now let's talk about the absolute summon on one condition, and that is that you don't have Praetus and Uredin already. If you already have Praetus, this banner isn't really worth it to summon on, unless you intend to either whale or are looking for a very specific Pope Awakening and you cannot seem to get a Soulstone. Like, Pope in general, he's super strong, especially as long as you only have him once. Having him once is pretty much enough. Yes, then this A1, you can get this with a Soulstone. This A1 is probably one of the strongest in the entire game. This A1 is pretty broken. This A3 obviously only makes him stronger, and this A5, yes, but overall I would say it goes like A1 and then A3, A5. Hunting for A5 Praetus, it's not something that should be on anybody's mind unless you're intending to whale and or compete at the very highest level in, for example, GVG or certain other pieces of content. I think it's more than enough to just have a single Praetus, and if you have a single Praetus, you can just skip this event. I would even call this banner the GVG Endgame Starter Pack, and that is because Uredin, as nice as he looks, at the moment really has no purpose besides being a BP hog. BP hog as in he can reach still the highest BP scores in the entire game with proper gearing and proper artifacts and whatnot. And then you can use him to power up your demon soldiers to make certain offenses work. But unless you're fighting the top 10 in the world when it comes to guilds, unless you're fighting top 20, there is no way in hell that you're going to need a Uredin to affiliate your demon soldiers for you to be able to succeed. He's pretty much just a gateway into endgame GVG unit. So this banner overall, if you already have a Praetus and if you don't intend to spend, just skip it, save these ancients for something else. If you don't have a Praetus, must summon, get yourself that first Praetus, or at least attempt to do so. And that is pretty much all you have to say about this banner, which brings us to the very last part of this, and that is obviously what are we gonna do? Why do we want to even save our summons on these potentials right here? And that has to do with units to come, right? We're getting into not only new game modes, a bit unfortunately, but the tower mode has been delayed from in 2 weeks to in 3 weeks, so it's starting on the 21st. So we're getting not only the new tower mode, but we're also getting a new codex, and Abyss 1 is still a problem, and you can bet everything you have on the fact that Moonton is going to introduce some type of hero that makes Abyss 1 more bearable, more doable, more realistically approachable. And that is pretty much what we all want to save for. And another thing is, it's been a while since Valentine's. We're now closing in on 1.5 months, or basically with the release of the tower, it's going to be like a 2-month difference since Valentine's, which means, yeah, limited heroes are back on the table. Limited heroes in specifically Faisha. So Faisha, she's been the very first limited hero ever to be released, I think. Maybe second after Reeves, unsure on that one. But she wasn't all that great. She was pretty much just nice to look at, did a bit of damage, and she was fine. Now she has been reworked, she has been reforged, she has been refined, and she is now a bona fide, very nice, tippity-top limited unit. So a Faisha rerun is something you could be saving for in the future. The release of the very first Tactical Mastery class, or in general any other heroes that might come, because again, Fenris, he's a nice off-banner pull. So the future is bright, the summons are brighter, but saving is what we shall do. And we have to look into the future and stay on our toes and look out for what we're going to get. Very interested in seeing what Moonton still comes up with. I'm still in the hopes of us getting like level 70, maybe new artifacts, new gear. I don't know about this one, we'll have to see. I think at least, yeah, back in the developer interview, they said they were at least considering it, right? They kind of shut down my suggestion, but they said they were considering it. So yeah, this has been this triple threat summon, skip, save banner. Should you summon? And we see each other in the next one. Peace.